Welcome to Body Energetics, evidence-based spirituality to get happy, healthy, and hot. I'm your host, Lauren Saracione, and I've been in fitness for over 22 years. I've also had 3 major healing events where I learned something new and deeper about the mind-body connection. It is my mission to help you get happy, healthy, and hot. So whether you're here for mindset work to get happy, emotional work to get healthy, or owning your desires and who you be to get hot, Body Energetics is for you. Welcome to episode number 11 of Body Energetics podcast. This is an about episode about awake. We are in an ascension cycle. Astrophysicists have said that every 5,000 years, we get synchronized energies from different areas of the cosmos. We are in a cycle right now with the 5,000 years, but we're also in an astrological year where the universe moves from one area of the zodiac into another. And we transitioned from the age of Pisces into the age of Aquarius. And the age of Aquarius is about connecting to God, to source, without any religious figure being in between. And Pluto is playing a huge role right now because Pluto moved into Aquarius and will be stationed there for the next 20 years. Pluto is the planet of death and rebirth. And it's rumored that civilizations that have collapsed collapse at their Pluto return. And the USA is experiencing its Pluto return since the inception of this country. So that's part of the that is the entire reason why we are seeing so much craziness, because the energy that is hitting the planet from everywhere in the solar system is shifting. So if you've been noticing that things are so weird, that's why. So I want to share with you my perspective. I have Mercury in Aquarius, Pluto in Libra in my 7th house, which is about relationships. I'm Aries rising. I'm ruled by Mars. I'm a warrior at heart. My sun sign is Pisces. I spend so much time in the underworld and in the subconscious. I get a lot of downloads in my dreams. So I am perfectly equipped to share this with you on top of my Chiron and where my Lilith is. Chiron is the wounded healer and has a lot to do with my placement has a lot to do with addictions, which is like perfect for how I talk about food and binge eating and stuff. And then also my Lilith has a lot to do with belief systems. So I want to share my perspective with you because it's helped me navigate this and grow and thrive during this crazy time. And after this about episode, when I have episodes with my friends, you're going to have even more insights of how to rearrange your life with the new energy, because your life is going to fall apart in different aspects, but there are going to be things coming together out of your wildest dreams. I have 5 things that I want to share with you, and then we'll see what branches off from there. The first thing is that this is a game of duality. We have positive energy, negative energy. And there are 2 ends of the spectrum of an experience, right? Making an imaginary line across the screen. You have in the center of a line, life. And then on one end of the life is awful. It's horrible. It's suffering. On the other end of the line is life is beautiful. I can create whatever I want. The neutral event is life. The duality is the experience can be really shitty or really good. So that's what this planet is for. And that is also the energy that we are leaving in a sense, but not fully leaving. We're really getting a greater perspective that we can have a neutral experience that ends up shitty. Like we can go through a really horrible thing, but we can also stay grounded to hold the bigger perspective and not be a victim to it. And in this duality, this experience that we've had for so long, the contrast has gotten sharper and sharper and sharper as we've been moving into the age of Aquarius, because the systems that were in control and the energy that was in control of this planet is falling apart with the new frequencies coming in. And I don't know about you, but when you're trying to change your old habits, the old habits feel irresistible. They're so hard not to do. So I look at what's happening with our government and with the 1%, the elite that are pulling all the strings of our politicians, and also really that our entire world is ran by corporations, not really governments. It's money that's making the world go round, that these systems are doing as much as they can to keep things in place. I just saw something that some governing body published that if you grow your own food at home, it is 5 times more destructive to the climate than industrial agriculture. Can we please put that together? A garden in your backyard is more detrimental to the environment than industrialized farming. And industrialized farming is like owned by 1 to 3 companies, right? So we're having a lot of information coming in through the world powers, and a lot of the real life information coming in on our underground apps like Telegram and WhatsApp, where people are actually reporting words and audio and video of what is actually happening in the world right now. And that actually leads me perfectly into what the veil is. So in the Bible, there is a portion of the scripture that talks about the veil being torn. And we have to look at the symbology of what our religious texts and our spiritual texts that religion has deemed evil are saying. And the technology is the easiest way to think about it, because we can watch the mainstream news that's only owned by a few companies, few people that are tied in with the government, that are tied in with our food, that are tied in with pharmaceuticals. We can believe what they say, or we can believe what the people say. And so this veil being torn is that we're getting our information from one place or the other. And of course, the boots on the ground of actual civilians are being deemed the misinformers. So as we go through this astrological cycle and this shift, one of the other things that we really want to look at is the planet of death and rebirth. Pluto was in Capricorn the last 15 years, and that favored the elite controlling powers. It's moved into Aquarius. It's going to be here for 20 years, where the power is going to the people. So we're going to see a greater evolution of consciousness, a greater evolution of the people not being divided, but the people not being controlled by the few superpowers. And this is amazing because it's going to give us opportunity to anchor in the new energy. So the planet is, she's having her own sentient experience. And us, if you actually just looked at us as an energetic being and you just saw your chakras and you just saw your aura, and you looked at that as electricity, and then you looked at the physical body as the thing that was being lit up, a lamp. In the Age of Aquarius, if the iteration of evolution is that we are connected to source itself without any intermediaries, that means that we are funneling our unique experience of source energy through our physical body. So first in that manifestation, and then expanding out further into our relationships, expanding out further into our creations, what it is that we are contributing into society, so that we can be a truly interdependent, co-creative, collaborative, social species that humans actually are. If we allow ourselves to question what is being told to us, then we can really start to ask more questions about ourselves. And this process for me started in 2020. I'll save my awakening experience for the conversational episodes and stuff to come. But what I do want to share with you right now is that when I popped out of the matrix, when I was able to see through the television screen, my questions to source, to God, was, who was the first perpetrator? And what went wrong in the natural order of cause and effect? Because we had lots of stuff happening in the summer of 2020, if you remember. And I thought, hurt people, like if we have all these like cute little mantras to get us through our stressful day, hurt people. And if you are a victim, eventually you will become a perpetrator if you don't process the thing that happened to you. So I'm watching what's happening on the news and what was going on in humanity's issues at that time. And I'm like, well, if somebody is perpetrating against somebody right now, they're only doing that because at one time they were perpetrated against. Well, then who hurt them in the first place? That caused me to go down a rabbit hole investigating religion and spirituality. And what I found out was that very, very bad people used the Bible to perpetrate other people. So then I was like, well, if these people can use the Bible to perpetrate, who hurt those people first? Then I got into paganism and looking at countries that were above the equator that practiced pagan practices, which was their direct connection to source, different deities, different interdimensional helpers that help us navigate the human experience, that were murdered and tortured into submission for religion. So I was like, okay. And then lo and behold, I got to the Gnostic scriptures, which are the Dead Sea Scrolls, in which, this is going to blow your freaking mind, they describe the God of the Old Testament as actually being the head evil being of Mother Earth. And there's an entire story that goes along with Mother Earth's descent from the center of the cosmos, and that as she fell from grace, inorganic beings sprang from her body, meaning energies that were not connected to life force, to God's source, came off of her body as she was falling through the cosmos. And the head being rose from the ocean, looked around, did not see anything, and said, "Therefore, I am God." And that, in this story that I'm referencing, is said to be the God of the Old Testament. So I was like, God in the Bible is not God? What? That's a whole nother story. My second question was, what went wrong in the natural order of cause and effect? And I had that question because I was like, okay, we can have all these dreams, all this manifestation stuff, like, I mean, just look at like, the last 30 or 40 years, there's been so much stuff about personal development, spirituality, law of attraction, manifestation. So I'm like, if we want these things, how are we not able to get them? Like, if cause and effect is a universal law that says I am the cause of the effects in my life, how do we keep reliving nightmares instead of our dreams? What happened? And then that took me down some other rabbit holes that have to do with the fourth dimension, which is the dimension obviously above us, that is the dimension of the mind and is the dimension of frequencies and mind control. So naturally, I ended up on the CIA website reading declassified documents about teleportation, about the subconscious mind, about manifestation. I got onto the USA patenting website where they showed that the TV actually is patented to lower our frequency so that we are able to download and receive subliminal messages more easily. So that was pretty mind-blowing. And then things just like kept going from there and there, on and on and on and on. Those two questions have changed my life, and I'm so glad that I asked them, even though it was incredibly painful to go through the process of unwinding it. Part of being awake in an ascension cycle is also that you are doing your ancestral work. And if that's new to you, what it means is you are taking responsibility and ownership for everything that has happened to your people. And the reason why I was like so adamant of creating about episodes with the science, especially with biology of belief and with emotion code, because those are connecting our vibrational aspect of our ancestry through miasma and our biological ancestry through our cells. And it goes even further that when we were an egg inside of our mother's ovary, her eggs were developing while she was in utero in your grandma. So we're also connected through our physical body on a cellular level through the egg, because the overlap is there was always an egg in a grandma that then we came from. So all this information is stored in our body on a cellular level. The DNA is a blueprint. The DNA is interdimensional. It also has to do with manifestations, incarnations, different iterations of your physical body in other layers of the universe. Like literally like as translucent beings, like you are Arcturian, Andromedan. Those are my lines. So Arcturian, Andromeda, if you don't know, they're different constellations. And when you do deep spiritual work and you start to tap into your angels or different deities, they're actually you. That's your line of consciousness that's getting connected with. So your DNA is interdimensional of all of these different pieces of consciousness that you are and that exist at all times. Then you have the information of your physical people, and you have the information of your people energetically. So if you're doing ancestral work during an ascension cycle, you are clearing out the trauma, the victimization, and the perpetration of your people. And if you go a layer deeper and you really start to tune in and understand how the planet is designed for a stream of consciousness that is existing on all levels at all times simultaneously, there is no time. For us to have that experience, our ancestors are also us in a very crazy, convoluted way. So their pain is your pain. What happened to them happened to you. What they did to other people, you did to other people. And this information is on the cellular level. And when you are waking up, you can have weird dreams. You can have weird meditations. You could have weird things happen to you. Weird things can come into your reality that all have to do with different timelines, different lifetimes of yours and of theirs. For me, the questions that I asked God, who was the first perpetrator and what went wrong in the natural order of cause and effect, had so much to do with religion, government, and science. And in ascension cycles, if you look back through history, ascension cycles have the contrast that we're having now of the old world powers trying to stay in power. And for me, when I looked at the last 5,000-year cycle, it had a lot to do with the church, and where the information of how the chakras worked and how you connect with source energy all on your own, that was pushed out of society. If you believe that stuff, you didn't survive well. And that's when the church came in and said, God is male. You have to go to church. You have to tithe to the church, like all the control through the church. This correlates with Constantine, the first Roman emperor to be Christian, who he changed the metaphysical text of the Bible to be literal. And the texts of the Bible have to do with your body parts and your organs. And he made it literal and excluded things so that people didn't know that the power with source energy was actually within them. That really made me angry. And a lot of people will call this the religion wound. And in my ancestry, I have Catholic blood I have Catholic cells. And the Catholics genocided, murdered, tortured into submission pagan people. So I had that going on in my system, which there was so much stuff that I had to unpack about religion and control. And then my Jewish side, I had a conversation with my grandma, and she said, Some of us moved to the States. Some of us moved to Australia. Some of us died in a chamber. Some of us, we don't even have a record of because there's no record. Their ghetto was taken over. And I have a PDF that my uncle put together of my ancestry. It was a lot to feel. And when you do your work around what happened to the Jewish people back then, they were called the invisible enemy. And that is how the government was able to get other civilians on board with turning a blind eye, allowing us to be taken into camps and murdered. And also, while we were in camps and being murdered, we were also experimented on. And a lot of our modern medicine is thanks to us. You're welcome. With the information about my Jewish ancestry and what was done to us and how it was able to happen, 2020 was basically the veil being torn, because in 2020, we had an invisible enemy, which superpowers need to have to get civilians, to get their people on board with an agenda. So we had our invisible enemy, which was C19. We got separated from each other. We got separated with ideologies. And I broke it down as like, wow, so first they separated our bodies. Then they separated our mouths and our communication, because some people wore a mask, some people didn't. Then they separated it with political ideology, that if you ask questions, you were a Nazi, ironically. Then they separated us with the shot. And if you can take your emotions out of it and just look at it as a business, it's all connected. Every single piece of it was connected financially. And when people like me looked at the non-mainstream resources of doctors who are speaking out against the experimental poke, we became the invisible enemy. So I was going through my ancestry stuff all over. Like, I was experiencing my people. And I had a lot of really incredible, beautiful experiences with them, but that's what it did. Like, that was my ancestral work. But then, remember, I asked, well, I don't know, did I say this yet? I asked, oh yeah, I did. Who was the first perpetrator? That the perpetrators used the Bible, and the people who believe the Bible were once victimized by people creating the Bible. And the ascension cycle that we had 5,000 years ago, where our religion was church. Like right now, our religion is science. So I had my ancestral stuff going on with government experimentation and the invisible enemy and genocide. Then I also had, oh, this is the planet that we have duality, where we are a piece of God. We're all connected to God. We are God. There is no separation between us and that, because everything has energy in it, and God is the ultimate and supreme reality. So the game here on this planet is you get to incarnate and you get to create. But if there is a victimization and a fragment of an idea in any person's mind at any time that makes that person feel separate from the ultimate and supreme reality, separation is the thing that makes us feel victim. So on a very, 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 very large scale level, what we have on the planet is consciousnesses that believe they are separate from source energy. They become narcissistic and have to siphon the energy of people who feel connected to source energy. So then we have the power struggle. And because this has to do, the whole experience of the universe has to do with God, the ultimate and supreme reality, the game then becomes, how can we, the perpetrators, the ones who believe we are separate from source energy, who need to siphon the energy of people who feel connected, how can we control our energy source so that we can remain functioning? Just a narcissist. This is what a narcissist does to an empath or someone who is a victim. So when I saw how that plays out and how it worked with religion and how it worked with Constantine when he changed the Bible, I was like, oh my God, like this ascension cycle is no longer about God. It's about science. Science has become the new God. And that just opened me up so much, because I was like, but we like literally have evidence that goes against the agenda. But that evidence and those doctors are having their board certifications removed. People were getting murdered for speaking out. And of course, none of this is on the news, right? It's on the underground apps. So it was very, very scary. And I was super triggered. And that's what the awakening process was like for me, and doing the ancestral work. And I had this one moment at the gym where I did a really hard leg exercise, and I sat down and I leaned against the mirror at the gym, and I just started crying, because I felt like the reason why I have this beautiful background behind me. Oh my God, it just did fireworks. Yes. Oh my God. And it's sprinkling. Oh my God. It's like, I wish if you're listening to this on audio, you could have seen just what happened. I felt like what just showed up on the screen and what's behind me was inside my cells. I felt this like regeneration, that I had grounded all of my ancestors into my body. I was no longer visualizing them and doing meditation work and using my chakras. It was like I integrated into my physical body and I burst into tears. And that was like a year ago. And I was like, okay, I think we're done. And so this awakening process for us, if we go through it, if we allow ourselves to go through it, you are going to grow in power, because you take what happened to your people and you extract the wisdom from their situations. You are still going to have moments of fear, but you have a much larger perspective, because you're understanding that this planet is here for us to experience life in the human form, but ultimately our soul is directly connected to source energy. And so when this physical body dies, however awful it might die, and the death process might be physically, the real process is that our soul just rejoined source energy, or never even left source energy, because the infinite field of consciousness is all around us. Our soul is all around us and within us. So if this physical body starts to deteriorate, or if it dies, we just kind of like break off from the physical reality, and we don't rejoin because we never left source. And like, that's like one of the biggest misconceptions I think that there is. We never left source energy. We never left God. We just got a physical body that's tangible, that is separate enough for me to put jewelry on, that makes us perceive that we are separate and alone. And then when you compound that with the human experience of whatever it is that we came to experience in our chart, whatever it is that we decided to ascend through our physical body, all the shit that happens to us when we're kids and when we're growing up is actually just the physical manifestation, the journey for us to really embody whatever it is that we came here to create. That's, to me, what being awake is. And it's something that I think that a lot of people in the spiritual community have misconstrued, that they think that there is another place to go to, that we're going to lift out of our body, or our body's going to change. Your body will change. I mean, I can't eat the same foods that I was eating before 2020. And there's things that you will not be able to tolerate when you go through the ascension process, because you are releasing pain from your body, from your cells, from your ancestry, because everybody at some point was a victim and a perpetrator. So you have to go through a very deep forgiveness process for yourself, for whatever bad things you did or your people did. And you have to forgive the people who did bad things to you, because there's just no other way. Like that's what you have to do if you're going to ascend. And when you're ascending, the ascension happens in your physical body. You are transmuting the energies that have been with us for a millennia. Like this is the ultimate ascension cycle, where we are going to create this direct connection to source energy, where we are going to remember who we are. And so you might like get colds. Like I got strep throat so many times. I got strep throat almost every time I spoke my truth. And you might get body aches. The type of exercise that you do might not work anymore. Like I said, the foods might work for you. Different people might not work for you anymore, where you just are not aligned with them. And trying to think if there's anything else that I want to say about this. I think that my inner anger, not just from Dr. John Sarno's work of inner child primitive, of the baby inner child, I think on a soul level, especially having Mars as my rising sign, so angry at the control. But if you do forgiveness process for the people that have hurt you, and you find out that they are like a copy of a copy mindset, they're just doing to you to make themselves feel whole. They were victimized at one time and didn't know how to do forgiveness. So by default, they perpetrated against you. And when you do that forgiveness process for yourself, you also see the times that you were a perpetrator to other people when you didn't know any better. And if you believe that this is an ascension process, and you believe this is a time to reconnect, and it's a time to reprogram, and it's a time to anchor in new consciousness, we can't really hold on to any negative beliefs that we have about the experience, because if you keep expanding into a universal perspective that we're in an astrological year that happens every 25,000 years, you can't help but forgive whoever it is that's in power, that's pulling the strings right now, because at some point, the consciousnesses that they have in them, whether they're human or whether they're in the dimension, fourth dimension and above, doing weird stuff, you have to also look at those entities and beings as entities and beings that have believed that they are separate from source. And how scary it is, how scared you are when you feel separate. That's the consciousness that they're dealing with. And so that's what causes the perpetration, but that's what also created the experience, the duality experience, for us to decide, I like this, I don't like that. So get ready for the Awake episodes. They're going to be so fun. I've already been contacting some of my favorite people to be on and talk about their awakening experience, and also their expertise with astrology and human design and science. I have a doctor that's going to come on too. So that's going to be really great. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. If it was helpful to you, please share it with anybody who's going through the ascension process and questioning the current narrative of our world superpowers who are soon to be not in power. And join our Facebook group, facebook.com/group/bodyenergetics, because we have our monthly community call where we can get into juicy discussions with each other about all things body energetics, evidence-based spirituality to get happy, healthy, and hot. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you found it helpful, please head over and give us a 5-star rating and leave a review for how this was helpful for you. This is going to help me spread the word faster into more people who need this information to self-heal. Join us at facebook.com/group/bodyenergetics, where we have discussions about the episodes. Go to bodyenergetics.com so that you can sign up for my newsletter to make sure that you never miss an episode. And that's the place that you're going to get invited to our Zoom discussion that we have every single month. Tag us on social media, Body Energetics, and we will reshare your tag and enter you into our monthly drawing to win our really cute water bottle or our really cool mug.